Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. More objection from King's Council Group on proposal by Privy Council to review merit law. And later in sports, experienced track and field coach declines to confirm link to vacate Jamaica college job. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shamela Pullen. Here are the details. Dr. Horace Chang says plans are being explored to address the issue of overcrowding at police lockups. Karen Simpson reports.
The state of lockups again came to the fore after public health officials recently raised concern about poor hygiene practices at the facility in Manchester. This, coupled with space, has been a long-standing issue at lockups island-wide. Speaking at the Police Federation's 81st conference, National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang said discussions are being held with a view to addressing the matter.
Usually we don't see the jail spaces as first priority. We keep them in good order. The DSP said about keeping them sanitary and clean. We have that sort about building additional space for the jail spaces, the lockups really, as opposed to prisons with the correctional service. And what we have been having internal discussion on is how we can maybe reduce the numbers, not by asking you to reduce your work, but by putting some people on community service, using electronic monitoring, etc. I think there's some things to be done to bring that up to date.
Dr. Chang says research has been done and this approach will be explored as a means of monitoring wrongdoers. The security minister added that plans are also being explored to create a separate space for hardcore criminals. But for one police officer, most offenders in lockup are high-value criminals.
The persons we have are high-risk persons. And most of the times, the ratio is sometimes 1 to all 15, 16. So it is now chronic, sir. And when a person is bailed by the court, it is no longer the prerogative of the police. It should be the prerogative of the correctional services.
Yeah. So you're keeping some of those in the police as well?
And we are keeping all of them.
In response, Dr. Chang said further discussions will be held to consider constructing more jail space. In the meantime,
we do have a plan to build a new prison, but that will be further down the road. We want to do something in the short term, and I'll certainly keep the discussion going and find the appropriate solution.
Karen Simpson, TVJ News.
To news from the courts now, more members of the King's Council Group are raising objection to a proposal by the Privy Council to review the merit law. King's Counsel Peter Champagne was speaking on TVJ Smile Jamaica Wednesday. The constitutional reform in Jamaica and the potential shift from the Privy Council to the Caribbean Court of Justice continues, but a new proposal from the Privy Council is adding to the debate. The proposed review of merits appeal rule to reduce the number of cases brought by appellants from jurisdictions it serves is not going down well with some members of the King's Council Group. This rule is among several new rules expected to take effect in August. Like many of his counterparts, King's Counsel Peter Champagne says this is a violation of Jamaica's constitution.
In our local courts, that is to say the Court of Appeal, we have what is called a filtered system, and it's just a simple term I'm using for the benefit of persons that are lay persons, where the Court of Appeal would, by a single judge, for instance, determine, or the Court of Appeal in general determine that this is a matter that is not worthy of going to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, right, or in the reverse, that it is worthy.
Right.
So in that particular, the latter instance, when that is done, can you imagine a situation where you go before the Privy Council and they're saying, well, there's no merit, we are not here in the Privy Council?
Mr. Champagne says this is also a clear message that it is time for Jamaica to move away from the Privy Council.
I firmly believe, because of the importance of this being our final Court of Appeal, that it should be determined by way of a referendum. It can't be a situation where you have politicians determining, and I mean on both sides, coming together and saying, okay, this is going to be our final court, without involving the people. I think it's so fundamental a principle that we need to have a say to determine the way forward. And it may ultimately be a situation where we end up with the Caribbean Court of Justice.
As for whether Jamaica should have its own final court of appeal,
the point is, I think that Jamaica is an amazing country. We are very, very, very dominant on the world stage, irrespective of what others may want to think. And we have our problems. But the long and short of it is that, of course, it's possible. Why not? And we still have this element of mental slavery where we think that all things foreign is great. Not necessarily so.
Yet another member of the Constitutional Reform Committee is speaking out this afternoon. The committee's co-chair, Lieutenant Rocky Mead, insists the final report was not politically motivated. He says the document, which was tabled in the House of Representatives, was based significantly on consultations from the public. Lieutenant Mead was speaking at Wednesday's post-cabinet press briefing.
As we heard from the people, it was obvious that that was a good thing to do because there were many issues raised by persons which are equally important. And so, for me, the phasing was a necessity, and the way we grouped the phasing made sense. Phase one, to deal not just with deeply entrenched matters, but those for which we could find consensus. Because there are some matters as well that we could really have tried to address, but we did not find consensus. And we thought we would leave those for further discussion. So I can't comment on the politics, Minister, and that obviously we're in a political environment. I know nothing about the politics. But certainly from a process perspective, I don't see that we had a choice. And I think the committee did the best it could with the issues we face and how we had to group them. And I think this initial report is a testimony to getting consensus.
In Primetime News Tuesday, we carried a story about a proposal from the Constitutional Reform Committee, CRC, to change the composition of the Senate from 21 to 27, 15 from the government, 9 from the opposition, and 3 appointed at the president's discretion. That is correct. We also indicated that some constitutional changes would require a 2/3 majority vote in the Senate, and opposition support would not be needed. However, in a subsequent paragraph, the report pointed out to maintain the constitutional amendment safeguard, the CRC further recommends the restriction on the passage of entrenched constitutional measures without the support of at least one opposition senator. TVJ sincerely apologizes and regrets the error. It's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. It's now time for the Business Minute.
Stationery and Office Supplies Limited, SOS, saw increased post-tax profit for its first quarter ended March 2024 when compared to March 2023. The company's earnings for the period was 95.5 million Jamaican dollars, up from 94.1 million for the same period in 2023. SOS total revenues for the 3 months was 524 million Jamaican dollars compared to 519 million for January to March last year. The company says revenue from its C-Client climbed 9%. During the quarter, SOS says it intends to build a new 8,000 square foot warehouse at 26 Collins Green Avenue in Kingston. The warehouse says it will form an integral part of SOS's expansion plan for 2024. Further afield, the Biden-Harris administration is seeking to release 1 million barrels of gasoline over the coming weeks. The 42 million gallons of gasoline will come from strategic reserves that are located in Maine and New Jersey. The Energy Department said it will sell the gas in quantities of 100,000 barrels to the highest bidders. That process was constructed to maximize its impact on gasoline prices between Memorial Day and Independence Day. Demand for gasoline tends to peak in the summer when more people travel and drive longer distances. Congress mandated the sale in March. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Carrie-Ann Simpson.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report. In this evening's health report, we look at whiplash.
Right after they have an accident, they're going to grab their neck usually like that, and that's their first indication that they've sustained a whiplash. It can happen in accidents from any angle, but predominantly when the car is hit from behind because you're not expecting it, and your head goes forward and comes back rather forcefully. It can slam into the headrest behind you and cause some damage.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Rest, stay active, maintain good posture, and use a neck brace. Time now for the top region. We head to a quick break. When we come back, we'll have your midday sports report with Giovanni.